What's something that's influenced you in your music that you never got to talk about before?
I'd love to talk about the Beach Boys, I think. Like, listening to Pet Sounds for the first time a few years ago really like blew my little 17-year-old mind. And just like getting into how Brian Wilson created the album, like how he kind of used the studio as an instrument and as let like the acoustics of the album carry the album sound. So he was kind of influenced by the like collision of voices in like old a cappella groups, like the Four Freshmen and stuff. And then when he came to that point in his career where he had full control to make his own record, like he had money, he had people, and like full creative control. Before that, he was kind of just making like weird surf albums, which were good. But he sort of used the studio and players and instruments in like a way that hadn't really been used before. So his kind of philosophy behind the album was like the idea of a wall of sound. So if you listen to some of the tracks on Pet Sounds, it's kind of like you can't really tell what instrument's being played at any time. Like, you know, there's guitars, there's strings, there's piano, but the way it's mixed and played and like pulled together, it's just like a big wall of sound. Doesn't mean it has to be super overwhelming. It can be really, really subtle too. And sometimes it can only be a few instruments, but it just gives this really warm and full feeling. And even though I don't make music at all in the same realm as the Beach Boys, especially not that album, it's really something I tried to bring into my own music when I started producing. So when I made my like first song, Corrections, I was really honestly just trying to imitate that and trying to like create like a big wall of sounds that like could carry a lot of weight without being super obvious and in your face, if that sort of makes sense. Yeah, I just think like the Beach Boys are really well acclaimed and talked about and everyone's got an opinion on them, but like, and I didn't really get it until I really like listened to Pet Sounds for the first time. I was actually listening to it and reading a book about the album at the same time as reading it, and like, not gonna lie, I started like tearing up. Like it was intense. Like it is just an amazing album. As an album as well, conceptually from like front to back, it's great. But yeah, just trying to like recreate the like a sonic mood or a sonic like feeling. It's kind of like an album that's dictated by its sonics, and I feel like that's where I cannot, like the space I can operate into, like as opposed to like creating like a great melody first and building around it. I like to like create a great sound first and then try and see how I can wiggle a good song out of it. So yeah.
When people discover you and your music, what's the first thing you'd want them to think?
What's the first thing? That like there's a lot of things on offer, or like there's no two tracks are the same. Bit of a cliche thing to say, I think, but like I try to create like a cohesive feeling across my sounds, but not a cohesive sound. But at the same time, something that hopefully you'd want to like hear more from. So like I don't try not to get too stuck on like whether something is too dark or like too happy or like invoking a certain feeling, but like hopefully it all sounds like my stuff. And it's really hard to do that. It's taken a long time for me to try and like figure out how I could like create your own sound. I think at the same time you don't want to be too stuck on like how to create, oh, this is not my sound, or this is a kaikobad song, or this isn't. But hopefully someone hearing it for the first time is just intrigued, I hope.
Where does the name kaikobad come from?
It's pretty much like a more pronounceable version of my granddad's middle name. So my ethnic background's Parsi, which are like Persian people that have lived historically in India. And yeah, it's not an uncommon name in like Parsi community and other parts of like South Asia as well. And I was reading a Parsi book, and I saw the name again a few years ago, and I just thought it was a great name. I didn't want to make it something too deep and like something that carried a huge weight with me every time I wrote the name down or something, but I just thought it was a great name, and yeah, just went with it. Better than all the other ones I came up with before that.
Do you feel trapped at all by our current system of streaming and algorithms?
I don't think I do. I think there's a lot of like opportunity, and there's a lot of like positives to take from it. I mean, all the usual criticisms of it are like valid and like true, but for me personally, I think I'm really lucky to live in a time where someone like me can make like their first few like songs or like beats, put them on the internet, and like you do the right thing and people are hearing them. Like, it's still kind of mind-blowing to me that like, you know, this song has like 100,000 streams or whatever. I mean, numbers aren't everything, 100% agree, but like they I guess there's something. And like, I don't know, just it's when you're putting stuff out there, it's obviously like a great hope that like someone is going to listen, but it's not like a guarantee. And like, you know, streaming, so in my opinion, like Spotify and streaming services and stuff, once you like kind of have to adapt your approach to making music to the streaming services, which is really whack to say. And like, I've had like conversations with people about this, but like the way I look at it is kind of like, you know, people were making radio edits or like songs for radio back when radio was the thing. So like, it's kind of, and like that's like accepted practice. So making songs for like a certain medium makes sense. So making songs for the medium that's in now kind of also makes sense. And not saying I want like to make like songs just so they have like a TikTokable moment, or like, you know, this one's going to go well on streaming or something. But like, I don't know, as artists and like a new like emerging artist, you kind of just have to like figure out how you can jump on the train of where things are going.
How would you visually describe your music if you could?
Probably pretty like abstract and bright. I feel like even if my songs are dark, like in like the tempo and like how they make you feel, like I always imagine the sounds to be like really full and bright, and but like within a balance of not being like big and loud and overwhelming. I guess it's like part of making electronic music is like there's that side of it which is really loud and like huge, and that's great, but like trying to fit somewhere in the middle, I would, and I think my like visuals reflect that as like just like really like bright, like ethereal. Yeah, and I do a lot with like the color green and colors green and orange. They're like my favorite colors, and I think they just come out a lot whenever I try to like make something visual to my music.
What inspired the use of nature sounds and sort of field recording type of sounds in your music?
Well, first of all, I just always thought that they sounded great whenever I heard them in a record. Like I was young enough to where it wasn't like I wasn't like bitter, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I just turned on another ambient song and there's like birds chirping in it again. Because now it is a bit like that, you know. But when I like first clocked into like artists who do ambient or like electronic stuff with nature and like field recordings, it was like that fresh, mind-blowing feeling, like, whoa, people do this, it's so cool. So like Mount Kimby or like Fortet or something, they really like clicked it in for me. And at the time when I was starting to produce my own stuff a few years ago, I was working a job as like an office cleaner, and I would bring like the job, I'd have like a 5-hour shift and I'd be able to get everything done in 3 hours. And then it was kind of at like big office building, but I'd have like a big outside perimeter as well. I'd have to like, you know, sort out, like clean. So I'd just bring like a little field recorder and just like record like random stuff for 2 hours. Like it'd be like the dripping of like water on a steel like roof, or like, you know, down there like gutter or whatever. And yeah, I just think it can give music like life pretty much. And it's always nice to hear and like nice on the ears. And like, especially when you make electronic stuff, sometimes you can it can maybe feel a bit like robotic, or like doesn't have that like human element to it. Even if like the chords and the melody's great and like lush, like sometimes it just adds that like nice human element to it, and all of a sudden, I think it can be more accessible to more people.
What is the best live show you've ever been to?
Probably a weird one. When I went to Listen Out in 2018. I saw like my favorite rapper at the time, JPEG Mafia, and I don't make music in that realm at all. But he is like a real high bar for like his production and like his mixing and stuff. And I remember just seeing him for the first time. I didn't really know what to expect, but like his live show was just so unhinged. Like he was like jumping around, like ripped his shirt off, jumped into the crowd, like was kind of like getting held up by them, but also not. Like it kind of felt like he was like battling the crowd, but it wasn't in like a aggressive, like negative way of like, he was like done with the crowd and like was, going off with them. It was like he was feeding off the energy, and like I'd never like really seen anything like that before, and like I just had like the best time ever. And his music, like that song Jesus Forgive Me, I thought like came out around that time, and it's just like this big, like you listen to like you hit play on the song, there's no like build up or like second to spare. It's just big huge track of like sounds, like reverse synths and like all this stuff, and like samples. And hearing that live was like really like jarring, but at the same time I'm just like, I'm sold. Like you're the greatest, you're the best. So, and I still love all of his stuff like up to this day, and like listen to it all the time. So I think that was like a great formative concert for me. It was a lot of fun.
If you could remove or change one thing from the music industry, what would it be?
If I could remove or change something from the music industry, what would it be? Well, I think that like the music industry, I feel like it's at a bit of a changeover point or like crossover point where like the old like music industry and like the old way of like getting songs out to people and like, operating is kind of like getting smaller and smaller, and only like some huge artists are still going in that sphere, and like only huge artists can afford to do that, like huge album rollouts, and like, I think things are getting more niche and better at catering to people who enjoy that niche of music, if I'm making any sense at all. So I guess if I could like change anything, it'd be like to rapidly expand that process of change. And I hate to be like, oh, there's like an old guard of music or something, but I just feel like, with streaming platforms getting so good at serving, they're okay, getting good at serving people music that they might be interested in, it's allowed like a lot of fresh like subgenres to really like thrive and then come back into the mainstream. So like Charlie XCX Brat coming out a couple months ago, if that album came out like a few years ago, it would not have been as well received at all, or like people wouldn't have the reference points to be like, oh yeah, this is actually great, because the groundwork of like hyperpop and things wouldn't have happened by that point. And I feel like there's a real beauty in that. And like in 5 years, there's going to be like some stuff that people hear now, and it's going to be like, it wouldn't make sense now, but in 5 years, it's going to be like, oh yeah, because that came out and that came out, and like, things getting like really well accepted by a small group of people, and then eventually coming way back out to the mainstream. So like if we can accelerate the process of that, I think it'd be great, because you just get like a really great wide variety of music coming out.
Is there a sound or genre you'd like to explore you haven't had the opportunity to explore yet?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd like to produce more like hip hop or rap. It's actually what I tried doing starting out. I feel like everyone had FL Studio and was like making beats, but they were really awful. But I'd really love to give it a proper go with. I think my problem is I just didn't know any like artists, so I was kind of just like making beats for the void of nothingness, and like it didn't have a great direction, like any direction to go to. And obviously I'm not going to start rapping, but I think that's a sound I'd really love to explore. I also think my end goal has always been to make pop music. Like I always wanted to be like Timbaland of like the 2020s, where you just have this like signature pop sound that is really well accepted and accessible and everyone loves, but at the same time it's like the fucking weirdest shit you've ever heard if you break it down. So like, you know, you listen to like Timbaland's hits with like Justin Timberlake and stuff, and like, you know, you take the drums out, you take the great like singing over it out, it's like the weirdest like melody, it's like jarring, like electronic, like mono synth stuff going on. Like he was really great at putting like weird like avant-garde things into pop songs, and everyone's like going off to it. Like you put on like a Timbaland song at a club and it's like everyone's like going crazy, even compared to like, you know, like a dance song or a house song. So my end goal's always been that. So hopefully in like 5 years, 10 years, I'll have accomplished something like that. I can't exactly see how it's going to look, but like, you know, making something that's really accessible, but like you break it down and it's the weirdest shit of all time. That's like where I'd love to be at and where I'm aiming to be at.
Sick. And last question, who should we interview next?
I think I'm really enjoying the guys from Armlock at the moment. That band, they're really great. And they just put out an album that's really amazing. Even though, again, it's not at all in the realm of like what I make, but like just as a music fan, sounds crazy. So yeah, it'd be really great if you guys could interview them, I think. It'd be cool.
Any questions, Tom?
No.
It's all right, all good?
Great.
Anything you want to say? Any final statements?
Yeah, my EP would have come out by now. You're Everything That I See, and it's my debut EP, and I'm really excited to have people listen to it because I've been sitting on some of those tracks for a while. Some of them are really fresh, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how people receive it because it's been a really quick year for me putting up music. Like, I only put up my last song last year. Got the chance to go to the States, Vietnam, here in Melbourne even. It's been really amazing and really a lot, and I'm really grateful. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the EP if you've heard it. Cheers.
Cool.